wonderful afternoon to you all. Thank you so much for joining us live. I am Antoinette Toss, your special guest host for this meaningful event. And we would like to officially welcome you to the National Mental Health Week 2022 webinar for the general public, Thriving in Well-Being, Ensuring a Healthy Environment for Positive Mental Health. Now, we are now on our fourth day of PMHA's week-long celebration, and for this day, we would like to highlight the need to raise awareness about the alarming state of our environment and how it can directly affect our mental health and well-being. We shall be joined by three wonderful guest speakers to discuss this very relevant, timely, and crucial topic for our environment and mental health of the youth, professionals, and of course, community members. Now, to formally begin, we would like to start together with all of you with a prayer. We'd like to humbly ask you all to place ourselves in the presence of the Lord. Dear God, we offer everything to you during this webinar. May we ask for your blessing and guidance that the activities set for this program be successful and effective. May we retain the invaluable knowledge as we apply all of this in our lives. We pray that you bless all the members in charge, guest speakers, that they fulfill their tasks responsibly, and that the objectives that have been set may all be achieved. Your generous blessing would mean the success of this program, and we know without it, we can do nothing. May we be living witnesses of your genuine love through the implementation of the knowledge acquired through this activity. This we ask in Jesus' name, amen. And to grace us with her presence for today's event and to officially welcome us all, please give a virtual round of applause to Miss Maria and Michelle Noscal, Program Manager of PMHA's Clinical and Intervention Services Department, to deliver her welcome remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Miss Antoinette. Maulang hapon sa ating lahat. I hope everyone is safe. On behalf of PMHA, we are very pleased to welcome all our participants for today's webinar. To our partners, stakeholders, consultants, clients, family members, our resource speakers, and all who are present here. Thank you for being with us today. Maaaring nakasama na namin kayo simula pa nung Monday when we started our mental health celebration and activities. And we truly appreciate your time and presence. Tunay ngang napakahalagang mabigyan natin ng pansin ng ating mental health o kalusugan ng isip sapagkat ito ay parte ng ating kabuuang kalusugan. At hindi lang yon ngayong linggong ito. Ito ay pipiliin natin araw-araw. At ang sabi nga, there is no health without mental health. And as the theme of World Health Organization campaign, make mental health and well-being for all a global priority. Every one of us are reminded to recognize and prioritize our mental health and well-being. At hindi lang din ito tungkol sa pangangalaga sa ating sarili. Kasama rin ito ang ating kapaligiran at ang ating komunidad. Our topic this afternoon is very relevant and important as we will all learn and understand how our environment, our community, affect our mental health. Paano nga bang ang isang maayos na kapaligiran at community na meron tayo ay makakatulong upang magkaroon tayo ng positibo at malusog na kaisipan? And how can we become part of the solution to protect everyone's mental health and well-being? So sa mga katanungang ito, I am sure, siguradong marami tayong maiiuwing kaalaman na maaari din nating maibahagi sa ating mga kasamahan. And I know that you will all find this webinar fruitful and beneficial. Again, I feel honored to welcome everyone to this webinar at muli, maraming salamat. Happy National Mental Health Week po sa ating lahat. Thank you, and back to our host, Miss Antoinette.
Thank you so much, Miss Michelle, and happy National Mental Health Week indeed, both to you and to everyone joining us live today, and those, of course, even watching this on replay. And truly, mental health is a beauty that radiates with our inner glows. At nakikita talaga natin yan in each other, and that's also part of a sign of how we even support each other. And let's try to look at the inner glow of our participants today. At syempre, hindi naman necessary mag-on ng camera, pero para sa mga game, mag-on ng camera, magpakita, mag-hello, ipakita ang inyong inner glow virtually mismo, or kung gusto nyong ipakita ang inner glow nyo through a message in the chat box, of course, here on Zoom, or even on Facebook Live, please do so. We would love to read some of your greetings and comments, and of course, see those beautiful, positive faces and glows. Ayan, meron na po akong babasahing mga greetings right now really quickly. Galing kay Cynthia Marca. Sabi niya, best PM to all. Watching po from Muntinlupa National High School Guidance. At hello din po kay Patrick C. Flores. Good afternoon, sabi niya, everyone. I am from La Consolacion College, Linuan, Cebu. Wow! Talagang sabi nga natin, National Mental Health Week, and we have participants from all over the Philippines. Hello to Jennifer De La Per. Ay, bumibilis ang pagpasok. Good afternoon po, saying hello to all of you from Camarines Norte, sabi ni Melba Arciga. And of course, meron din tayo, Daniela Ann Sullivan says, good afternoon from St. Joseph's College of Quezon City. Wow, thank you so much everyone that is here with us today. Humahabol ako sa mga comments ninyo. We will have more time to read more of your greetings later. Magsha-shout out pa tayo. And once again, thank you for joining us today. All right. After that quick hello, that quick sharing of the inner glow, and of course, never tayo dapat mapagod at mahiya mag-share ng inner glow in any way to share love and light. And of course, with that, I think we are actually ready right now to embark on our journey into a more mental health inclusive community, and to give us a more in-depth understanding on the current environmental issues, concerns, and related advocacies, I am honored to introduce our first speaker. Now, first speaker is a graduate of BS Biology from the University of the Philippines in the Visayas, majoring in everything else extracurricular. Now, she's been working together with Greenpeace volunteers, youth, and community partners for over 10 years now, co-creating campaigns together with communities around issues on toxic pollution, ecological agriculture, climate justice, and climate action. She conducts workshops on waste management, nonviolence, direct action, and creative facilitation. Now, prior to joining Greenpeace, she was a learning and development practitioner in the BPO industry, an avid food gardener and outdoor enthusiast, of course. She is a homeschooling parent and teacher of two strong-willed girls and loves to spend her weekends on pottery. Now, that's what we call balance. Ikigai ika nga for mental health din yan. Now, please give a warm welcome to Miss Heidi Illenberger. Good afternoon, Miss Heidi, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello. Thank you, Tony. And thank you for the work that you do for the environment. Makagana kapag mag-introduce. Magandang maulan na hapon po sa lahat. Once again, ako po si Heidi Illenberger, Public Engagement and Actions Manager ng Greenpeace. I lead a team that takes on the work of engaging and collaborating with volunteers, partners, and various. Slide po tayo. So the organization that I'm part of, Greenpeace, it's a global independent campaign organization that acts to change attitudes and behaviors to protect and conserve the environment and promote green, just, and peaceful future. Globally, we've been around since 1971 and active in 55 countries. We're present in Southeast Asia for over 20 years now, since 2000. In the Philippines, we work together with the broader civil society movements in passing bills into laws. We bear witness to environmental destruction. We campaign using creative tools, that is, nonviolence. And so, next slide, please. So thank you to the organizers of PMHA now for having me to represent Greenpeace today. I'll share about the climate crisis and its effect on the mental health and how we can take action in caring for the environment to foster mental health. Growing up, I can remember only 2 typhoons that impacted our area in Panay in a major way. So mabubuking yung edad ko, but that was Typhoon Undang at Typhoon Nuping. Back then, the destruction brought about by typhoons were far apart. Fast forward to the time when I was a new mother while carrying our then 1-year-old daughter. I saw a live news video of a car with people on its roof floating in the overflowing river with gushing fast current. When the car passed the bridge and came out the other side, wala nang sakay na mga tao. So sigawan kami ng mga kasama ko sa bahay. That moment, that image stayed with me. I think that was my turning point when I realized I need to get involved more. That also fueled my desire to act and be part of the solution. That was a live footage from Ondoy in 2009. The succeeding years that followed, we all experienced more frequent and stronger storms, more frequent extreme weather events, and at present, it's become a climate crisis. Next slide. So, ano na nga ba ang climate crisis? Na karamihan ay dulot ng paggamit ng fossil fuels. Ang resulta ay pagbabago ng klima. Sa pagtaas ng temperatura ng mundo, lumalakas at dumadalas ang tinatawag natin na extreme weather events. So, may super typhoon, gabing buhos ng ulan, at sa kabilang banda naman ay drought na nagdadala naman ng matinding baha, landslide, storm surges at forest fires. Ang isang epekto din nito ay ang tinatawag na sea level rise na na-experience na ng ibang communities sa bansa natin. Next slide, please. Ayon sa mga eksperto, based sa Climate Risk Index, sa data nila from 2000 to 2019, the Philippines is among the top 5 most vulnerable countries globally due to the impending study na linabas noong September 2021, kung saan yung mga group of experts from various fields surveyed 10,000 individuals ages 16 to 25 about climate anxiety and its relation to government action. Next slide, please. Majority of the respondents from 10 different countries said that the future is frightening. Almost half of the respondents shared that their feelings and thoughts about climate change negatively impacted their everyday lives, including their ability to concentrate, eat, sleep, study, and enjoy their relationships. When we talk to young leaders whom we collaborate with in our work, they also expressed and shared the same concerns. No? So mixed emotions of feelings of fear brought about by traumatic experience dahil survivors sila ng isang climate-related disaster, unprocessed grief from loss of loved ones and friends, hindi pa nga nakapag-recover, may bago na namang padating, frustrated feelings that their government failed to care or protect them, and they're not doing enough to prevent the climate crisis. Meron feelings of anger due to uncertainties by the impacts of the climate crisis. Meron ding feelings of distress as their future, yung dreams nila, feeling nila it's being taken feelings na despite their own local action. So, smorgasbord climate crisis na ito. Next slide. Yung climate crisis is largely brought about by burning of fossil fuels. Next slide, please.
Ayon sa pagsusuri ng isang scientist na si Richard Heady, top fossil fuel companies are among the biggest contributors na cumulative global carbon emissions and greenhouse gases since 1854. So these corporations na nakikita ninyo, these are the most responsible for this climate crisis. Next. The issue on climate crisis is an issue of justice. The poorest and the least responsible for the climate crisis are those who are suffering and will suffer the most. Ang karapatan nating bilang ordinaryong mamamayan ay naapektuhan din ito, tulad ng karapatan sa buhay, karapatan sa hanap buhay, karapatan sa pag-unlad, karapatan mamuhay Iba ang taong lugmok at na pagkaitan, lalo na sa mga kabataan. Despite the climate anxiety of our youth, they carry on with courage. They continue to claim the kind of future they want to have. Madami kaming mga youth na katrabaho na nakaka-inspire. Not just for themselves, but for the future generations. However, next please. The climate crisis requires billion acts of courage from various groups. So what can you do? What can we do to support? Unang-una, adapt a simple and green lifestyle. Never discount the collective power of individuals trying their best to make a difference. So pwedeng by commute, car share, bring your own bag, using your purchasing power to support local farmers, or using your purchasing power to reject corporations that generate a lot of plastic wastes. So itong mga simple things, collectively, this has power. Pangalawa, get involved, be active in your community. Yung issue kasi ng environment is also linked to bad governance. So join the call for good governance and call our public leaders to prioritize climate action. And join the call then for our country to invest in clean technologies and renewable energies to cut down carbon emissions and offer more green jobs to people. So pangatlo, let your voices be heard. So pwedeng write to your policymakers and Congress representatives to champion climate justice. Join offline activities, be counted. Sama kayo sa mga mobilizations pag may patawag na ganon. So that matters. Learn also more about the climate crisis and spread the word. There is power in talking about the climate crisis within the lens of mental health advocates and experts like yourselves yung nasa room ngayon. And last but not the least, stand for climate justice. Support the call of the youth and communities to hold carbon polluters and its globally implement and act on to their commitments. Demand from carbon majors, yung kaninang pinakita ko ng mga brands, those transition towards renewable energy. Sure. So yung last ko is let's come together. Next slide, please. Let's come together as one community to demand for climate justice. What does it mean to demand for climate justice? Next. Let's tell the world that we want it for a safer climate and demand for accountability. Call for corporations and the government to break free from dirty energy and shift to renewables like wind and solar, because dirty energy sources can fuel this climate crisis further. The impact of climate crisis impacts not just infrastructures and physical damages, no. It impacts our basic rights to have a dignified life. It impacts our children's well-being, mental health, and development. Collectively, we need to respond to protect the mental health of children and young people. And let's assure them that we've got their backs by action. I'm wrapping up my presentation with a short video regarding climate anxiety. Video on, please.
Pinapayan po natin yung mga kababayan natin sa areas na may warning signals number.
I have also experienced Yolanda when I was in grade 6, and I've seen our neighbors' houses were really distracted, and I am always very afraid that it might happen again, and worse things may also come as has been predicted by scientists.
We're all anxious now. Yung iniisip namin is may bagyo ba bukas, gaano kalakas, ano yung sabi ng pag-asa. And it's a trauma for everyone. It's just that people are trying, I mean, hindi na nila naiisip yung anxiety ngayon because ito na yung nangyari. Like, we just need to focus on rebuilding now. We don't have time to cry. We don't even have time to grieve for the lost loved ones.
We are not just talking about destroyed homes, but lives. We have seen really the great effects of typhoon. And sometimes we just lose our hope. Sometimes we just think about children, we need women in order for to survive. If typhoons are getting stronger and none of the people, more carbon majors and richer countries are giving solutions to climate change, the climate anxiety is increasing.
It's really hard right now, especially that locally you're acting, but globally you can see how much, how much does it cost para magtulungan yung mga tao para ma-champion natin ang climate action. Philosophically, we really love, sustainability. But however, scientifically, we can see that it's really impossible for us to sustain what we dream of, a safer and a more sustainable community or planet.
We're talking about stronger storms, extreme weather events, sea level rise, warmer temperatures that create a very difficult situation for many Filipinos because it intersects with the bad governance, with the massive decline of natural ecosystems. It is therefore not surprising that these unprecedented levels of anxiety are being felt by Filipinos and experienced by many communities dealing with the impacts of climate change, but more so by the young generation whose future is threatened by uncertainty and by all of the dangers and difficulties that the climate crisis bring.
We see a lot of cases of people being affected by post-traumatic stress or other forms of psychological experiences. And most especially, these disasters affect the vulnerable communities. Children, for instance, imagine young people are already traumatized early on when they experience these kinds of situations. They're also expressing, their frustration, their anxiety, and even their anger towards decision makers, those who are in power, for their inability to act on the climate crisis, to make the right decisions, and to actually enforce those decisions into real actions and real transformations in the different sectors of society that are responsible for the climate crisis.
What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it?
We cannot deny the fact that, the carbon majors, the corporations, the company, and the businesses from the ground going to the top, and even the policymakers who are into money, into profit, but they don't care about the children, the future generation, and the generations yet unborn. But we keep on writing letters. We keep on doing publication material. If we come together as one community, then we can really champion this.
I really hope that it will fuel more action to young people to put pressure to their governments and also to large corporations to commit to their commitments. I really hope that it will rally more young people and not only youth but different stakeholders in pressuring powers to push for really genuine and radical climate action.
This is not a one-month fight or a one-man war. But this is a fight that involves us, climate activists, researchers, members of non-government organizations, alongside community with us. Because whenever we feel down, little, feeling this anxiety, whenever we always put into our minds that there are people behind our backs, hoping and providing us strength, we can move forward. That's what makes me still fighting for climate justice.
So ayan po, to learn more about our work, follow us through our website and our social media.
And should you want to collaborate with us also, feel free to send me an email. Maraming salamat. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you so much, Miss Heidi. That truly was a very compelling presentation. And of course, a lot of the points that you touched on are truly crucial, that actually we've been on some of those missions with you as well, with Greenpeace Philippines. And really, truly, this is something that is directly impacting the Philippines. Na-mention ni Ms. Heidi kanina yung dami ng storms, and sometimes because we are here in the Philippines, in our country, we can't really imagine that we are actually number one in some of the research that has been already revealed and released as one of the most vulnerable countries in the world to be impacted by climate change. And of course, when we talk about the impact of climate change, this is already some of the examples that were mentioned earlier, with the fact that even today, we are hit by an average of 20 storms or 20 typhoons per year. And when we think about the number of these climate events that happen per year, especially to the Philippines itself, we become a buffer to the Asia Pacific region, but we are also the one that is most vulnerable, most impacted, most especially coastal communities. And even when we speak of coastal communities experiencing this over and over, this is something that has a direct impact on our mental health, for those most especially that are experiencing it directly, for those that have loved ones, and not just that, for those of us that care, that truly get affected by these climate events that are happening around us, that are affecting lives. Lives are lost, families are lost, loved ones are lost. And when we speak of climate justice, it's not just about solving it by trying to do something for the environment. Yes, that is truly important. But of course, policies and further action to really get to the source of solutions for a better future are really the pathway forward. And so once again, we thank you, Ms. Heidi, of course, to Greenpeace Philippines, and to all of you out there, to our climate warriors that are fighting for both people and the planet. Maraming salamat po. And of course, we would like to move on now to our second speaker. Umpisa pa lang po yan, and we have so much more for all of you today. And actually, I believe we are already fully packed on our Zoom. So for those of you, for participants that still want to join, if you have friends, family members, and those out there that would like to join this session, you can actually join it by watching this on Facebook Live. So we are live right now on Facebook, and you may share it to your family and friends as well. We've also just shared the link in the chat box. So please do spread the good word. And now moving forward to our second speaker, Dr. Ron R. Resurrection. Now, Dr. Ron R. Resurrection is a registered psychologist and an associate professor at De La Salle University, where he obtained his PhD in counseling psychology. Now, he has more than 22 years of teaching experience and more than 14 years of clinical practice. Now, he is a former president of the Psychological Association of the Philippines, or PAP, and he was the former chair of the DLSU Psychology Department, and currently the Associate Dean of the DLSU College of Liberal Arts. He advocates for mental health, children with disabilities, and their families and the environment. So sit back and relax as Dr. Ron Resurrection further expands our knowledge on the effects of environmental concerns and issues to the mental health of the youth. Good afternoon, Dr. Ron. We are so grateful to have you with us today.
Good afternoon, Ma'am Tony. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, PMHA, for inviting me this afternoon. It's a great honor. So for this afternoon, I'm going to talk about the effects of environmental concerns and issues to the mental health of the youth. So may I share my screen now? All right. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Dr. Ron.
Right. Let me start with this. So our focus is the youth. So when I talk about the youth, what we usually associate with the word youth? Anyone would like to answer, or even sa chat box siguro, no? Ano bang naiisip ninyo pag youth? Sige, ako na lang din. Meron ba sumagot? Teenagers, potential good. Okay, so it's nice that that these are all positive words, right? But unfortunately, if you Google the word delinquent, see, I type delinquent dun sa Google, tingnan niyo yung definition ng delinquent. Typically of a young person or that person's behavior showing or characterized by a tendency to commit crime, particularly minor crime. Okay, and for the noun, it's young delinquents. No? So they associate delinquent with youth. Medyo unfair, di ba? So there's a movement in psychology which we call the positive youth development. Okay? So this movement, or the PYD, recognizes that among young people, human goodness and excellence are as authentic as delinquency and misconduct. Yes, it's true that there are youth that are involved in negative behaviors, but we should also recognize that there are young people who are extremely talented and contributes a lot to our society. So PYD sees young people as resources rather than problems. And it focuses on each child's unique talents, strengths, interests, and future potential. So hindi yung dysfunctions, hindi sila tinitingnan as addicts, no? Or pasaway. No? So I hope all of us, or all institutions, should follow this framework, no? That we should see the youth as resources. Okay? Also, why do I see that? No? If you'll notice, majority of eco warriors are the young people. Yung pinanood nating video kanina, napansin nyo, puro bata yung mga volunteers or advocates. They're volunteers in a lot of causes: mental health, human rights, environment. In fact, yung mga tumulong sa akin sa rehearsal dito sa PMHA, puro bata. No? Sila Ma'am Reyes, si Ma'am Dominic, ang mabata. So, halos lahat ng nakikipaglaban, nakikibaka, are young people. No? So, if they're fighting for something they love, okay, and if something happens to that something that they love, nasasaktan sila, na nagkakaroon ng anxiety. Kayo man, di ba? Pag nasaktan ang mahal niyo, nasasaktan din kayo. So, nagkakaroon ng problems with mental health. Okay? And now, meron tayong tinatawag na environmental anxiety or climate anxiety or eco anxiety. No? The American Psychological Association defined it as chronic fear of environment doom. But it's still not listed in DSM-5, meaning clinical psychologists cannot use this as a diagnosis yet. It's still being studied, so it's not yet official. But it causes trauma and distress due to the impact of environmental change. So calamities, food shortage, effect on health. So, yan po. So, how can we know that if we have environmental anxiety? We feel overwhelmed and powerless sa changes. Parang wala tayong magawa. Of course, it might lead to depression due to witnessing the deterioration of the environment. Di ba makakita ka lang ng picture ng turtle na nasasakal doon sa plastic. Parang nalulungkot na bakit ganito na. So, deterioration of our forests. So, kung mahal mo yung environment, masasaktan ka talaga. So, you'll feel very depressed. Okay? We have physical symptoms. Di makatulog, nanghihina, loss of appetite. Okay? So, this can be part of the symptoms. Frequent panic attacks. Okay? And we're just resorting to unhealthy coping because we feel helpless, powerless. Sometimes we cope with drugs or isolation. We don't mingle with other people. So these are the symptoms. But there are a lot of things that we can do to battle anxiety, any form of anxiety, including environmental anxiety. Okay, so what can the youth do to have good mental health amidst environmental changes? By the way, anak ko yung nandiyan sa ilalim ng puno. So, next. First thing we can do is to advocate, to volunteer, just like what a lot of you are doing right now. So, one is to educate a lot of people about the effects of the environment, not just the younger generation, but our parents. So sometimes they're not even aware that what they're doing would affect the environment. So, educating even older generations. Be involved in simple cleanup drives. Nagbabakasyon lang naman din kayo sa mga beach, edi pulutin nyo na rin yung mga bote, mga plastic na nakikita ninyo. So, do that, waste segregation. So, just volunteer a lot time to volunteer. Then, unplug or disconnect. If you have less exposure to social media, less chances of being anxious. Ang dami natin nakikita sa social media, sa internet, na nakakapag-anxious sa atin. So if we will reduce it, then less exposure to negative content. Don't spend so much time in social media. Don't argue with somebody there. Walang nananalo doon. Magsasayang lang kayo ng oras. So better spend your time outdoors. Now that we're allowed to go out, just be careful. Just follow safety protocols. But you can do farm visits. Bring your children, bring your brothers, sisters, bring your parents. Experience actual animals and plants instead of looking at them sa pictures, looking at them sa Instagram. When you're out there in nature, feel the nature. Minsan, mas marami ka pang oras kakakuha ng picture at kaka-Instagram na hindi mo napapansin na sa paligid mo maraming little miracles. I'll talk about little miracles later. Do nature trips. Di ba tayo na-experience na naman yung malove at first sight, di ba? Mabighani ka sa may dumaan tapos ang ganda or ang gwapo, or di ba? Ganon din sa nature. We experience awe, right? If we see the Banawe rice terraces or Boracay or whatever, di ba? We experience yung bighani, Okay. And do nature journaling or even photo journaling. It increases our mental health. It increases gratitude that we're given this gift of nature. Then in your journal, you can also put insights. So what did you learn from nature? So you can do adventure therapy. Usually ginagawa to guided ng therapist, but you can do this on your own. Explore the wilderness. Usually ginagawa yan with groups. Masaya yan kapag marami kayo. Okay. And these are studies that will prove that there are benefits of nature. Nature really heals. It reduces eyesight problems, emotion regulation, and memory improves. It reduces stress and depression, better performance, height and concentration among ADHD patients, and less time with our electronic devices can increase problem-solving skills and improve creative abilities. And of course, a lot will claim that their spiritual lives improve by connecting with nature. Right. Next. Second, we can, third na pala ito na, we can develop resilience. We gain insights by using nature as a metaphor. Like my favorite metaphor of resilience is this picture. No, by the way, most of the pictures I used here were taken by my child and me. No, for example, I took this picture and it's very symbolic for me. This plant thriving in a vertical wall, cement. No, nabubuhay siya sa semento, and yet buhay na buhay. Against adversity. So we can use this as a symbol of ourselves, and that even if there are challenges, we can thrive. Not just survive, but we can thrive. We can also be involved in nature therapy. The good thing about nature-based therapies or ecotherapy, you don't need the involvement of therapists. Mas maganda meron, pero you can do this on your own. Like different techniques, nature meditation, usually go to a park, go to something, a space where you can be quiet. Then identify something in nature which attracts them or relates to them in what they can learn from it. So for example, how a cloud can turn into any shape reminds us of what we can be, so that we can be anything we want to be. I mean, then horticulture therapy or planting. So animal assisted therapy. We have physical exercise in a natural environment like nature walking. Ang sarap, di ba? Ang sarap mag-nature walk. Then involvement in conservation activities. Yun nga, conserving natural environment. Yung kaninang sinabi ko na clean up drives, no? We can be involved in that. Okay. So what else? Nature-based mindfulness, merong nature-based diet. No, you can, for more details, you can just search this. No? But these are possible ways to enhance your mental health through the help of nature. No? You can use creative arts, or you can use nature elements for creative arts. No? So like, for example, you can use leaves, no, to create painting or whatever. No? And it encourages nature connections. And among children, no, it promotes problem solving and innovation. Using branches of trees to do artwork. And nature journaling is very effective. No? And self-care is very important, and nature can have a very, very important role in being compassionate for the self. Okay. There are some home-based therapies. No? Like if you have children, you can use nature. Like for example, in the picture, these plants were used to portray a family. So si nanay, tatay, at yung anak. Okay? Then witnessing simple wonders. Sabi kasi natin, no, parang ang hirap naman magkaroon ng nature experience kasi pandemic, ang hirap lumabas. But nature's everywhere. Kahit nasa bahay ka, ang dami dyan. No? Ang daming wonders of nature. No? I'll give example later. And experiencing these simple wonders of nature promotes character strengths or positive traits, such as bravery, being compassionate with other beings, no? Appreciation of beauty, love of learning. Even death of parents can teach, death of parents, death of pets, death of pets can teach children how to grieve properly. No? So, now, I'm talking about everyday miracles. No? Hindi tayo kailangan lumayo. No? There are a lot of nature elements sa bahay natin that we can appreciate. No? Alam mo yung metamorphosis, no? Baby grasshoppers, ito, sa bakuran lang namin to. May maliliit na grasshopper na yan, nasa malunggay leaves. No? Itong moth na galing sa cocoon na naging full-grown moth. No? Bravery, no? When you expose your children to animals, they develop bravery. They connect with nature. This child holding a baby stingray, diba? Kinatatakutan niya, no? Pero she enjoyed touching it. Okay. Of course, so nature can help us in self-care, nga sabi kanina, no? So, again, practice self-care. Personifying pets and plants. Kayo ba, yung mga inaalagaan yung pets, may pangalan? Diba? It improves the connection when you name them. No? There's ownership. There's more affection when you name your pets. Even plants. No? And sometimes you go beyond giving them their basic needs. I'm sure may iba sa inyo dito, pinapaparty ang mga aso nila kapag birthday. No? Kulang na lang pag-aralin din. You know? Actually, pinag-aaral, you know? Training. So, yun. So, malaking tulong ang environment or ang nature sa ating self-care. No? So, for example, a simple pocket garden in your home can actually reduce a lot of stress. No? Now, this is what I really want to emphasize. Sorry, yung electric fan daw malakas. Sige, patayin natin. According to a lot of studies, no, the number one source of mental health or coping is social support. No? And we think of social support as family, friends, faith. No, yung tatlong F. Lahat tao, no? Faith, of course, I'm referring to God. No? But we limit social support to family, friends, and faith. But what I am arguing here today is that social support can also be received from nature. No? Nature heals. No? Sabi nga nila, di ba, vitamin C, no? As in C, dagat, no? Pag nanghina ka na, mag-beach ka, then dip yourself in the water, you feel stronger, no? Or literally, we get medicines from nature, no? So we get support from nature, no? Advisor, like metaphor nga, no? Like for example, an old lady feeling, alam niyo yung, di ba, pag matanda na feeling na wala na silang purpose, mamamatay na sila, no? So they feel depressed minsan, no? But seeing an old tree, kunyari yung matanda sa park nakakita ng old tree, sa ang daming hayop na nakatira sa kanya, mga ibon, no? Mga iba-ibang klaseng hayop. That became her metaphor that even if I'm an old person, no, I can still take care of a lot of people. So sometimes we get answers from nature. No? Nature can be a source of comfort. No? They're not judgmental. No? Punta ka sa isang lugar na walang tao, puro nature lang, and you talk, nature will not judge you. No? Nature can be a source of inspiration nga yung experience. Provider, no? We get our raw materials from our food from nature. And companion, no? Your animals, your pets, the plants, no? And all of these are social support, no? Kinds of social support. No? So therefore, nature can be a source of social support. No? Now, in psikolohiyang Pilipino, meron tayong tinatawag na kapwa, di ba? It's the core of the Philippine values and pakikipagkapwa. No? So when we're taught pakikipagkapwa, nakikipagkapwa lang tayo sa kapwa-tao natin, no? Kapwa, no? Itrato mong tao ang kapwa-tao mo. Okay. But since nature is also a social support, no? We should treat them equally, no? We should share our identity with them na kapwa natin sila, kapwa kalikasan. No? We're part of nature. We're one with nature. So when we teach our children, we teach other people sa pakikipagkapwa, no, hindi lang sa tao, but also sa environment, no, makikipagkapwa kalikasan, no, hindi lang pakikipagkapwa tao. So I'll end with that. Okay, so I think my 15 minutes is up. So thank you so much for listening. I hope meron kayong napulot kahit konti lang. No? Maraming salamat. Back to you, Ma'am Tony.
Naku, thank you so much, Dr. Ron. Our youth truly have so much potential in becoming leaders and spearheaders of change makers, actually, which is why it is important for all of us to support and take care of their well-being. And of course, provide a light and a guide and a pathway forward. And actually, Dr. Ron, nakarelate ako sa mga ibang sinabi mo. Hopefully later on today, I'll be able to share a little bit more about my mental health journey as well. But when you mentioned friends, family, and faith, I actually mentioned that all the time. Those were key aspects of what helped me move forward, what helped me heal. And it wasn't really a simple journey of saying, oh, do this ABC and automatically it will happen. You know, for me, it's also a constant journey. And even till today, managing our mental health, especially even in the world that we live in right now with the things that we are surrounded with, the environmental events, and not just that, the different injustices happening around us definitely have an impact on the mental health of not just, of course, those that are fighting for these, but everyone, from the youth to children to the elderly. So really, it truly is an important discussion that really needs to be brought forth, and this important and crucial link between the environment, between climate events, and of course, how nature can also help heal us, can also help us grow, to help nurture our physical and mental and emotional well-being. Maraming salamat po muli. And of course, ayan, I'm getting carried away with my comments. Super hashtag relate lang po talaga ako. And of course, it looks like we truly are learning so much today. At hindi pa tayo tapos. We still have a lot coming right up. But before we proceed to our next topic for today, we are happy to share with you a special intermission numbers from one of PMHA's partner schools in the Youth Life Enrichment Program, Lusog Isip ng Kabataan Club, or LINK. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, friends, let's give it up for the Quirino High School LINK Club.
malungkot, huwag hahayaang malugmo ang puso mo sa iba, pato sa'yo ng iba. Tandaan mong sapat ka, dahan-dahan tanggalin ang maskara, hayaang tumulo, mababat siyang mga luha. Dahan-dahan iangat ang mukha upang masilayan mga taong ika'y pinapangupahan mo, pagod ka na, pero di ka nag-iisa. Kaya't lumaban ka at sabihin, ako naman muna. Ako naman muna.
Maraming salamat. That was truly amazing. And thank you once again to Lusog Isip ng Kabataan Club of Quirino High School, or LINK. And speaking of thanks and gratitude, we would like to give a few more shout outs and say hello to some of our participants that are with us today live. It means so much na magkakasama tayo. At syempre, we hope you can share this live stream to family, friends on any of the pages or networks you may have, to help, of course, spread the good word, to spread the support and the love, and of course, so that others can also watch this meaningful event and, of course, join us in this meaningful journey ahead. Mag-hello po tayo, sabi ni Michelle Carla Capili. Hello from USL Tuguegarao Guidance Team. Sabi ni J.R. Soriano, nice, galing ng Quirino High School. Talagang napakagaling naman talaga at napaka-meaningful and emotional din po. At sabi naman ni Sean Timbal, good afternoon po everyone watching together with the Good Health and Wellbeing Committee on behalf of Benedictine UNESCO from Imos, Cavite. Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Hello din po sa LCC Tanawan PMHA Batangas Chapter Interns. At sabi po ito ni Camille Jade Garcia. We also have some thanks to Doc Ron. Doc Ron, sabi ng isang participant po natin, si Esperanza Zablan. Thank you so much, Doc Ron. 100% I agree with you that nature has something to do, of course, and has a connection to our mental health. At sabi naman po ni Rolando Visca, thank you for this timely and interesting webinar. We hope for more webinar sessions soon. Mabuhay po kayo. Grabe. Thank you so much, everyone, for these really touching and wonderful comments. We also know that even spreading these little messages, these kind words, does a lot for the people that they are directed to, and not just that, for all of us that are able to see these positive messages. Ayan, meron pa po tayo hello from Kathleen Grace Dispo, and sabi niya from Our Lady of Fatima, Valenzuela. Now, also touching on some of the comments and the theme of the video that we just saw, at syempre po sa message and sa learnings that we had with Miss Heidi and Doc Ron, you know, it's also really something that talagang up until recently, the role of a healthy environment wasn't really discussed when it talks about mental health, but it has been actually spotlighted that it really plays a big role in safeguarding human health and has been greatly neglected. But of course, nakikita natin this is changing. Little by little, both citizens and governments are realizing that by helping nature, we also improve our own well-being. And now for National Mental Health Week, we draw attention to the relationship between mental health and the environment. The United Nations Environment Program shared that the environment can influence either positively, of course, or negatively a person's mental well-being. And a recent study showed that how the idea of living in the midst of a climate crisis was actually affecting people's anxiety and depression levels. This also, and of course, the effects of our changing climate, economic uncertainty, job insecurity, extreme and volatile weather patterns, and displacement can also influence mental health. Now, air pollution all around us, 99% of us are actually breathing polluted air. Now, among other environmental threats, air pollution itself is particularly harmful, both physically, through damage to our lungs, to our heart, and so much more. And once again, mentally. Now, there is now growing evidence of a link between certain air pollutants specifically and mental illnesses such as depression, dementia, anxiety, and even suicide. Now, the risk is especially high among young people living in urban areas. And according to a recent study published, children become 3 to 4 times more likely to have depression at the age of 18 if they have been exposed to dirtier air at the age of 12. So while we look at all these factors, it is important once again to look at policies, how we move our pathway forward, and also talking about how we vote. Pag tayo po ay bumoboto, we hear directly from our different representatives of what they really are championing, what they are pushing forward for. So even when we think about what Miss Heidi was also saying earlier, when it comes to climate justice and climate action, how we vote, the policies that we support really are interconnected to our future, to both the environment's well-being and to our mental well-being. And oh my gosh, I feel like I'm actually getting carried away again with my comments and my passion for what we are all here for today. And before I move on to our next speaker, gusto ko lang ulit mag-shout out real quick. Sabi po ni Vivian V. Villacortes, kapag sad kayo, yakap-yakap ka ng malagong puno. Totoo yan, kahit ako ginagawa ko yan. At minsan nga, di ba, kahit nasa sasakyan tayo, mapadaan lang tayo sa isang area na maraming puno. Sabihin na natin, even if we're in a city or an urban area, biglang parang, ay, napapa-inhale, exhale na tayo. And that even gives us a few seconds, a few moments of healing. And so, yes po, to more greener spaces, hopefully, which is also better for everyone living, most especially in cities and metropolitan areas. Meron din po tayong hello, Christian May Marcelo. Sabi niya, good afternoon po. Watching from Bestlink College of the Philippines. Hashtag BCPP Psychosoc, and of course, Psikologistang Bisipians. Meron din po tayong greetings from Francisco Saludar, watching from San Mateo Rizal. Such a great webinar for us to heal ourselves and nature. Naku, grabe. Ako mismo kinikilig sa mga comments ninyong lahat. Maraming salamat. And of course, as promised, we have so much more ahead for all of you. Kahit now we are more than halfway through this wonderful event. And of course, last but definitely not the least, we are going to explore more the effects of environmental concerns and issues to the mental health of people at work and in the community. And of course, to help us more, I am truly honored to introduce our third speaker, who finished his bachelor's degree in psychology as cum laude at the Dominican College San Juan, where he obtained his master's degree in industrial psychology from Rizal Technological University, Mandaluyong. He is also currently pursuing his PhD degree in clinical psychology at the Far Eastern University, Manila, and is also currently enrolled for the Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Certification Program from Beck Institute of Cognitive Behavior Therapy, Philadelphia, United States of America, accomplishing 14 out of the 18 criteria needed. Wow, truly incredible indeed, and a superhuman that is here, of course, to bring love and light to all of us today, and so much wisdom and knowledge. Now, he is currently working as a licensed psychometrician and as a psychologist at the St. Luke's Medical Center, Taguig City, and in Quezon City as well. And of course, at Your Millennial Psychologist, Agapay, or YMP Agapay. He is also employed as an associate professor at Central Escolar University, Manila, and a review specialist at Your Millennial Psychologist Lead, or YMP Lead, for psychometricians and psychologists. He is also a certified dementia rater, a certified mental health first aid responder, and a certified Montreal cognitive assessment administrator and SCORE. He is also an active member of the Psychological Association of the Philippines, Pambansang Samahan ng Psikolohiyang Pilipino, Dementia Society of the Philippines, and the American Psychological Association. Friends, participants, we are all honored to have with us today Mr. Lordy Angelo C. Santos. Good afternoon, Mr. Lordy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Good afternoon, Ms. Taus, and of course to our listeners. Again, I want to express my gratitude for inviting me for this webinar. I hope I can share some of the things that we need to learn on how these environmental changes or concerns are affecting people at work. Okay, I hope you can confirm, guys, to our listeners that you can hear my voice clearly. So I can proceed with my presentation.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Mr. Lordy.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am, for that clarification. So let me share my slides. So we'll be focusing on how these environmental concerns or issues are currently affecting people who are currently at work and those people who are working within the community. So I believe the previous guests or speakers were already able to highlight some of the changes that we've experienced around us from those, right, from the increasing temperature all around the globe, no, yung mga natutunaw na yelo sa northern and southern poles, and some other changes that could really result into a devastating weather event, not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. So this could really affect the mental health of Filipinos and of course other people who are being targeted or being affected by these environmental changes. Now, aside from those direct effects or those consequences that these people are experiencing after they've gone through a devastating storm, earthquake, or other changes in weather pattern, people also tend to experience environmental anxiety or eco-anxiety. Later on, we'll be talking more about that and how the current psychological community is defining it or understanding it. But let's focus on those things that these anxieties presenting to the people, no, who are currently at work. Well, whenever we are at work, or for example, we are working on a specific project, whether we are on a school or on our group project, we need to experience an acceptable level of stress. So I hope everyone in this webinar could now understand that stress is not entirely bad or negative. No, when we experience stress, this is actually how our body and our mind react to the changes in our environment. We have a positive form of stress known as eustress that is motivating, that could push us to do something so that we won't be feeling boredom, no? And there's also a negative form of stress, such as an experience of distress, which could be overwhelming, that could really lead to fatigue, exhaustion, or even burnout. Now, whenever we are working on a specific project, on a specific task, we are already experiencing an acceptable level of stress. Of course, it is highly dependent on the quality or the quantity of that task that we are trying to carry on or that we are trying to do. No, but most of the time, it leads us to reach that state of flow or maybe a state where we can give our optimal performance. But what's different now is that some of us are experiencing that environmental or eco-anxiety, no, that increases this level of stress. Okay, it aggravates that level of stress and it adds up to that cumulative set of stress that we are experiencing in a day. So basically, when we experience stress, it could be cumulative. Like for example, while waking up, we will be experiencing a stressful situation. Later towards the afternoon, if we keep on experiencing stressful situation, we could really reach our threshold. We could become more irritable. We could have less focus, less concentration on the things that we are doing. So basically, that's what the changes in our environment is doing into our psyche or into our mental health. Aside from just dealing with those usual stress that we are encountering in our everyday life so that we can carry out the tasks that we need to do. the stress that is brought to us by these environmental changes compounds or aggravates that stress reaction that we are already having. So instead of these stresses to lead us towards that optimal performance, sumusobra po siya. Nare-reach niya yung threshold ng karamihan sa atin that would again drive us towards experiencing distress, fatigue, exhaustion, or even burnout. Okay, so as I've mentioned, those things that we usually deal in our everyday life can be a motivating stress or a positive form of stress that could drive us to do or accomplish tasks that we need to do. But whenever we become threatened by those environmental changes that we can encounter, no, since there are a lot of things that are changing around us, and we can really develop that environmental anxiety or eco-anxiety. So instead of just reaching a certain point where we can feel more comfortable, more in our character or more in the bounds of those things that we can do, it actually reaches a certain point that is too excessive or that is excessive for us, which could again lead to the experience of exhaustion or burnout. So for people at work, aside from the things that they are trying to accomplish, those tasks that are just given to them by their superiors or bosses, no, or yung mga boss nila, aside from those tasks that they need to do for a day, nagko-compound itong environmental stresses na ito or itong eco-anxiety natin. And it's not just limited to people who are currently at work. It can also be experienced by students, by individuals who are trying to go through their day-to-day life. So without those environmental changes or those anxieties that they can experience, they can manage to cope. They can develop behaviors or coping mechanisms that could help them get through the day or maybe even improve. But due to the presence of these threats that we can experience from our environment, it adds up to that burden or to that consequence that they may experience, which could again lead them to experience other unwanted mental health related problems such as depression, anxiety, anger management problems, and some other consequences. Okay, so they could perceive these threats outside the context of their work as an additional burden on top of the increasing tasks and role demands. Okay, so in the workforce or in the organizational industrial setting, we could sometimes experience qualitative and quantitative overload. Now, when we say qualitative overload, it usually talks about the difficulty of the tasks that we are trying to accomplish. Okay, so more often than not, we, due to our resilience, we can be creative enough to resolve those qualitative overloads or qualitative problems that we can encounter. No, but there would also be certain people who could really be overwhelmed by this qualitative overload. Again, that's just in relation to the nature of their work. Some people, though, may be dealing with such or with easier tasks, can still experience quantitative overload, wherein they are now being overwhelmed not just by the difficulty of the tasks that they are handling, but by the number of those tasks that they need to accomplish. Okay, and for some, it could be a combination of both. And again, that's just outside the context of these environmental changes that we are experiencing. But since we cannot always isolate ourselves from these changes that we are experiencing around us, and we are always in connection with the nature or with our environment, it could really drive someone towards experiencing more qualitative overload and more quantitative overload. Yung mga bagay or yung mga tasks na dati open kayo, no? For example, for additional challenges, for a challenging role, maybe due to the presence of these environmental anxiety or eco-anxiety and other experiences related to it, now it can become more difficult. Now you can close yourself to those challenging tasks because in the back of your mind, there is another threat that you need to deal, or that you need to start dealing with. And that is those environmental changes that we experience. Like for example, here in the Philippines, whenever it's rainy season, you don't just want to think about how you can accomplish the task that you need to do in a certain day on your job. You also have to think about how you can return home safely how you could actually arrive in your workstation without suffering from floods, traffic, no, at iba-iba pang consequences that you could actually encounter on your way to your work, no? So instead of having that enough psychological energy, physical energy, and mental energy to deal with those challenging tasks, no, you will be arriving at your workplace already exhausted. Same goes with those individuals who are experiencing quantitative overload. There would be people who are at first ready on dealing with a number of tasks. Okay, so you could deal, for example, with more than 10 tasks in a day in your work environment, but due to the need of you dealing with those environmental changes as well that you would encounter on your way home or on your way to work, then now you won't be having enough energy to deal with those things. Because again, a certain part of you is already used, no, to survive or to deal with those environmental changes that you are already experiencing. Okay, so what could be the organizational or the different consequences that we may experience if ever these things would persist and we won't be doing anything for such experiences? It could increase the number of absenteeism, no? So yung mga taong dating araw-araw nakakapasok, pwedeng mas madalas ngayon ang kanilang pag-absent, no? Because they may really feel exhausted on dealing with these things, not just on the tasks that they need to accomplish. There could also be a large number of people who would be turning over their jobs. So people might start filing their resignations or quitting their job. Or if not, it may really lower their job productivity and performance. No? So as I've mentioned kanina, instead of accomplishing a specific number of tasks that you could usually deal with, no, since wala ka ng enough physical and mental energy to do those tasks, it could prevent you from accomplishing the same number of tasks. Right? Again, if we are exposed to these environmental changes. Aside from that, as I've mentioned earlier, an increased level of stress could increase our chances of engaging on hostile behavior. We can become short-tempered, we could become more irritable, less focused, no, less attentive to things that are happening around us. So in the workplace, there's a chance that it could also increase workplace violence. No, na tipong dati pwede ka namang biru-biruin ng mga kasama mo, pwede naman silang mag-joke sa'yo, pero ngayon, konting biro lang, nagiging mainit na kaagad yung ulo mo, or kung mag-react ka man sa kanila, it would also be an untoward act towards a coworker or a colleague. Okay? And worse, it could really turn out into, or it could really result into a burnout. Okay, so sir, ano ba ang main difference between stress and burnout? Basically, when we are experiencing distress, we are still trying to fight or to eliminate that source of distress. But for most people who are experiencing burnout, that's actually when they experience exhaustion. No, that there's nothing left out of their tank, no, their gas tank. So they tend to isolate themselves, or they tend not to engage on those things that they usually try to do. Okay, so kumbaga kapag stress, parang sinusubukan pa natin, no, na makapag-survive, maka-eliminate ng sources of stress na yun so that we can continue working on what we want to work on. But for the experience of burnout, it's something like we're already on an empty gas tank na hindi na tayo makagawa ng mga bagay na gusto natin sanang gawin. Okay, and dealing with these environmental changes or environmental stresses in relation to work or to other stresses that we can experience within the work setting, then that could really result into burnout. Okay, aside from those things, people could also rely on unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as engaging on using different substances. So drugs, alcohol, increased incidence of cigarette smoking, and other substances that could make them feel temporarily relaxed, no? But in the long run, could lower their threshold from these stressful situations and could make them more stressed, no? Whenever they experience a repetitive barrage of stressful situations. In an organizational setting, it would increase the healthcare cost of the organization. Of course, it's not just for the organization, but even for those individuals who are engaging on such behavior, such as they are more prone to develop medical diseases such as heart problems, hypertension, no, and other medical related diseases. So basically, this is how this eco-anxiety or the different changes in our environment could affect people in the workplace. This could also how it could affect the performance of a specific organization. No, so it's not just the person who's working on a job, on a specific job, who's being affected by these environmental changes, but the organizations themselves, and in turn, the economy itself. Diba? Siyempre, kung mas maraming organization ang makakaranas ng mga ganitong bagay, mas maraming tao ang makakaranas ng ganitong pangyayari, then it could always burn down to the effect that it can cause to our economics or to our economy. Ayan. Okay, so how about in terms of our community? Aside from workplaces, environmental changes, environmental effects could also draw these consequences within the community setting. Could also increase aggression, especially for those communities who are too vulnerable for severe weather changes, lalo na yung mga nasa coastal line or those communities that are highly dependent on living with the environment. Yung pinagkakakitaan nila, no, ay nasa nature, yung mga magsasaka or other agricultural businesses. So it could make them more irritable dahil yung mga pinagpuhunan nila, yung mga pinaghirapan nila, pwedeng under threat, no, with these environmental changes. So they would want to protect more of it. So they could become more aggressive as compared to how they usually are before these environmental changes would occur. Okay, so it could also elevate crime rates, specifically for those communities that I've already mentioned, especially if they perceive that their basic needs are also threatened by these environmental changes, no? That they would resort to crimes, stealing, no, robbery in order to secure those needs for themselves or for their families. Okay, aside from these things, we could experience social instability. No, that some of the rules may be broken down or some of the rules may be violated, not just by a specific set of individuals, no, but even by a larger group of people. Okay, and if those things continue to happen, then societies could start to break apart. It could reduce social cohesion. Those communities who tend to help each other in times of challenges, no, can now react violently to those communities who are now asking for their help. These communities could now preserve their own resources for themselves and prevent it from reaching other people who would need some help, no, from coming from them. And of course, we could expect it to induce more health-related problems, not just medical or physical health problems, but also psychological or mental health problems. Okay, so some of which get some of this information from the just concluded convention of the Dementia Society of the Philippines. So here they presented research evidences how changes in our atmospheric condition tend to affect our brain health as well. No, so it came from the presentation of Dr. Sinina, which is also coming from the Journal of Geriatrics, no, wherein they've identified specific air molecules or particulate matter. So this would be plastics or dusts that could fly around us, no, that as a consequence could increase, no, our risk of developing dementia. So para po dun sa mga hindi masyadong familiar sa dementia, in Filipino setting, ito yung tinatawag nating pag-uulyanin. No, yung lalo na madalas nararanasan ng mga mas nakakatanda, no, na madalas na nakakalimot, madalas na nalilimutan kung paano gawin yung mga bagay na usually ay ginagawa nila during their younger age. No, so if these air quality continued to decrease and these particular toxic continue to increase within around us, then we could actually expect our risk of developing dementia as early as now to increase at a faster rate. So isipin na lang natin kung pataas ng pataas yung nitrogen dioxide, yung particulate matters, ozones, carbon dioxide, and tobacco smoke all around us, then that's a good formula for people who are at risk of developing dementia to eventually really develop dementia. But it's not just about those people who are at risk of developing dementia, but it could also affect people who are as young as us, the members of the youth or the members of the younger generation, because the presence of these neurotoxins or these toxics around us could reduce cerebral blood flow. And we know, especially for those individuals who are in the medical setting, that when there's a decreased or reduced blood flow within our brain, we can expect certain parts of it to be impaired or somehow dysfunctional. Okay, so for those younger individuals who may experience problems in attention, problems in decision making, problems in memorizing or recalling things, somehow the presence of these environmental risks could also affect those kinds of behaviors, which could in turn develop into diagnosable clinical symptoms eventually. And sad to say, as early as the fetus starts to develop, if the mother is exposed to such toxicity around our environment, then these debilitating effects could really pass down to that baby inside her or inside her womb. Okay, so those are some of the effects of these environmental changes in our physical and mental health. So here's one thing that I've kept on mentioning. It's technically a new term in the dictionary of the American Psychological Association. It's eco-anxiety. I think it was referred previously as environmental anxiety, which is synonymous to its meaning. So basically, it would be for those individuals who are experiencing symptoms of anxiety, but is usually triggered by the presence of their chronic fear of environmental doom. Okay, so they may manifest or exhibit the usual symptoms of anxiety, such as increased heart rate, cold sweats, other physiological reactions, but most of the time it would be about those possible things that could happen. And it would not just end there. It could also generate or develop into other forms of diagnosable mental health conditions, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, substance abuse or substance use disorder. So we could also develop MDD or depressive disorder, and even a sense of guilt, especially for those individuals who are victimized by the guilt activism. Diba? That is also a new trend on some social media. Okay, so they are the ones who are very much at risk of developing this eco-anxiety. So this effect, again, research is still ongoing, but the initial findings said that everyone is really at risk of developing such things, especially if we are aware of these environmental changes and if we do care as well. But some groups are more vulnerable, such as those things that I've already mentioned from the previous slides, the coastal communities who are very much vulnerable to experience severe weather changes, those indigenous communities who are usually living in the mountains, of course, landslides, and other environmental consequences, they are also at risk of it. And even those first responders who are tasked to respond to these environmental calamities that we may experience, if these changes are not addressed. Okay, and those individuals who are really depending on their livelihood from the environment. So they are the ones who are mostly at risk. But of course, I just want to reiterate that every one of us is at risk of developing these environmental or eco-anxiety. Okay, as a consequence, these are the physical or mental consequences that we may experience. Physical fitness could reduce, no? So dati ang daling mag-jogging, di ba? You could actually jog outside without wearing face masks. But now, some research suggests that it would still be ideal to jog at a specific time para hindi mo may encounter yung smog brought by the pollution, no, of the transport system that we currently have. Since we are exposed to those neurotoxics or toxics within our environment, it could increase our tendency to suffer from heart-related diseases or develop allergies. No, tulad ko, I have this allergic rhinitis, so sometimes a sudden shift in temperature or a sudden presence of dust within my environment could really affect my physical and mental well-being at the current time. Because I have to deal not just with the task that I need to do, but also with the effect of that allergic rhinitis. No? So instead of accomplishing tasks in a shorter duration of time, medyo mas magiging mahaba siya. No? And again, it would increase our chance or risk of developing other mental health related consequences. Okay? So if ever we are experiencing those things, whether it's relation to work or to our community, what are some of the things that we can do? No? Ano ba yung mga pwede natin gawin para matulungan ang ating sarili? First is to have active actions towards the environment. Maybe some of the things that can be done were already discussed by Dr. Ron and Ma'am Heidi, no? Such as those small contributions that we can do for our environment, making it more green, decreasing some waste, no, or having it recycled every now and then, and contributing to the community how we can instruct them to become more responsible in managing their wastes. No, yung kahit yung pagsisimpleng pagsesegregate lang could actually help, no, in managing these wastes. Next is to keep, no, in touch with credible sources. I think that's the part na talagang nakarelate, no, ang karamihan sa atin, because now there's a wide range of sources, no, for the different information that we can get from the television networks, from the social media, no, applications that we are using. Napakadaming pwedeng sources ng information or knowledge. But I hope each of us can identify, no, those credible sources of information so we can prevent ourselves from being misinformed or disinformed. Okay. So another one is towards working on our resilience. We may not be experiencing mental health related conditions or problems right now, but psychological help is not just for people who wanted to address a specific diagnosable mental health disorder or mental health condition, but it's also for those individuals who want to work on their resiliency. It's also for those people who want to work on developing themselves as a person, as a whole. No? So you could do it by reading some helpful books, again, coming from credible sources, and maybe even, no, from a help of a professional. Okay? We could start engaging on those tasks that could make us feel more successful or more happy about the things that we are doing for ourselves, those things that we enjoy. I hope we could engage in those kind of things so it can evoke or release more positive emotions. Another thing is engaging in those tasks that has a connection with nature. Okay, so we can do as simple as starting our own backyard gardens, no? Or kahit yung uso na rin ngayon, di ba? Yung mga indoor plants. Okay, as long as we can connect to the nature so we can understand how they are also trying to survive. One experience that I initially gone through, no, before I started connecting with nature is an excessive exposure towards those environmental changes that are being constantly delivered by different sources. So in that way, it's being highlighted to us that most of the things that are being done by some people are negative to the environment. But once you expose yourself to those activities that could really connect you with nature, no, such as visiting some nature reserves, some mountains, no, around us, or some islands that are left untouched, you could start recognizing those efforts being performed by the local government units, by the larger government units, in order to protect, no, that area, that island, that mountain, or that reserve. So you can be more aware about those efforts that are also being done to protect our environment. No? Okay, so of course, a healthy degree of optimism by weighing those evidences, no, that supports what really exists within our environment or what's really happening, would also give us a better outlook of what's happening around us. Okay, and again, learn when to disengage, especially when we are already being bombarded by information, no, against how people is trying to take care of the environment. No, there are a lot of collections or a lot of video collections that are uploaded in the internet that highlights how humans are trying to destroy the environment. But I hope we could also give our chance a fighting chance to recognize that there are also some people, no, who are also doing their best to contribute in the preservation of our environment. Okay, so these are some of the things that we can do in order to protect ourselves from environmental anxiety or eco-anxiety and from those consequences that I've just discussed. And again, there's no one size that could fit all. Okay, so some of these things can be effective for someone, but while some may not be that effective. And if we realize, no, that these things aren't that effective for us, it's okay to ask for help. No, we have professionals, we have psychiatrists, psychologists, and other mental health professionals who could always provide help. Okay, so I was able to give everyone an overview about how these environmental changes, environmental concerns could really take a toll on everyone, not just for those individuals who are directly in contact with the nature, but even for our youth, our workers, and of course, our communities. And again, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I hope you learned something about this short discussion, and I hope to give you more information about it during our Q&A portion. Thank you so much, ma'am, and I think I can give back the floor to Ms. Taos.
Wow, truly amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Lordy, for that not just insightful, empowering, and meaningful talk that you gave. And of course, the incredible information that you have shared from so many different aspects of research and science. And once again, today, we're not just talking about, of course, feelings and emotions. Mental health is so much more than that. And of course, our guest panelists and speakers today have truly proven that and have given us such valuable pathways forward. And of course, ways for each of us to individually go on a healing pathway forward, not just for the planet, but for each other and for ourselves. And of course, we also have a number of comments and questions that we are opening the floor right now officially to every one of you to be able to share any of your queries, anything you would like to know more about. If you'd like to delve deeper, ask any more questions from any one of our three speakers today, please do so. We are opening the floor right now, the chat box in Zoom, as well as our chat box in Facebook Live. So please do send them in. And while we are waiting for more questions from our guests today and from, of course, our participants, we do already have some burning questions prepared. These are actually questions that are frequently asked, and of course, that a lot of us would also like to know the responses to. Right now, we would like to call back once again our speakers to the screen. Of course, Ms. Heidi, Dr. Ron, and Mr. Lordy. Thank you so much for being with us today. And for our first few questions, these are actually directed to any one of the guests today. So if any of you would like to share a response, you may please just go ahead and do so. So first, we would like to actually ask which of the climate crisis or environmental breakdowns do you think seems to call for the most attention and most immediate intervention? And of course, on a practical level, what type of advocacy effort do you think could officially respond to or address this particular urgent issue? Please go ahead, Mr. Lordy. I believe I saw a raised hand, although you may just go ahead, no problem.
Oh, okay, thank you so much, ma'am. When it comes to practicality, and I guess one of the most immediate things that we want everyone not to start addressing within the community level or within even the familial level is of course the waste management. No, so it's something that most of us are already starting to engage with, but some of the time we may really experience that drift, no, from the thing that we want to do, but because it's easier to just stock or just throw our wastes on the garbage can, no, there's a really high tendency for some of us to just let go of that practice, no, and go back to the usual ways on how we dispose our trashes or our wastes. So I hope we could start on implementing regulations, no, and strict implementations of regulations in managing this waste, so that we could also guide not just individuals, no, who are in connection to the on how we can take care of nature, but even for the younger generation who's starting to work towards helping their environment, so they can already observe the best practices of the older people who's trying to protect the environment against these things.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lordy. And of course, waste management is also something that is close to my heart as well. Beating plastic pollution for clean seas, as we know with the United Nations Environment Program. But a lot of people actually are surprised to find out how plastics or waste in itself is directly linked to air pollution. Namely, hindi lang yun, actually climate change itself, because plastics are made of fossil fuels. So from extraction to production, all the way to the end, when it turns into microplastics that never disappears from the earth or the universe, nandyan na siya, we're breathing it in. So thank you so much once again, Mr. Lordy, for spotlighting that as well. But we would like to hear also from any one of our other speakers that would like to share any more insights on that last question of what you think is one of the most urgent that we should be tackling, and how do you think we should do it? We can move forward to our next question with that, actually. And this is actually referring to how may a community best mobilize concerned citizens, willing participants, and volunteers in the solution process. Now, if not in the management of the environmental changes that tend to affect mental health well-being.
All right. Is it okay if I add something to what Sir Lloydie said a while ago? No? I agree with waste management. No? But remember, during the pandemic, parang nabugbog yung earth sa mga single-use plastics, no, masks, utensils. No? So I think that's urgent. No? If we can find a way to reverse it, that would be nice. Kasi ang dami talaga, no? Ang daming single-use plastics during the pandemic. Regarding the second question, how can communities? I think key to that is coordination, so that no effort will be wasted. No, ang daming gustong tumulong. I'm very sure of that. No, but if our efforts are not coordinated, no, I'm sure sayang yung mga efforts ng iba. So, like for example, lahat ng efforts nasa isang area lang, no? So pero kung nagko-coordinate yan, mas spread yung effort, no? And second, I think we all know that when we make solutions, it should be scientifically based or research based, no? So that again, efforts will not be wasted. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Maraming salamat, Doc Ron. And of course, we're also looking forward to hear from Miss Heidi of Greenpeace Philippines. And truly, she also works directly with communities in itself as well. And Miss Heidi?
Yes. Babalikan ko din yung first question before I answer the second one, if that's okay. So,
of course, well, please do.
Yung sa, I suppose yung sa first question, agree ako that, the plastic and waste, the problem on the plastic waste rather is a huge problem. And another thing siguro na magandang i-prioritize na urgent din is yung call to prioritize climate action. Kasi 'di ba sabi ng mga eksperto na once ma-reach na yung threshold ng 1.5 cc na yun, a lot of our natural ecosystems will be irreversible damage na. So parang kailangan talaga siya ng urgent action. Tapos madami din na mga issues na experience ng mga communities natin, lalo na yung mga impacted dun sa extreme weather events, na nakalink dun sa issue ng climate crisis. So kanya yung livelihood, yung mga pananim natin, yung mga produkto ng mga magsasaka natin, yung housing, and syempre, nag-accumulate in terms of yung sa well-being ng mga youth, ng mga communities. So I think kailangan talaga siyang kailangan siyang bigyan ng priority. Hindi siya ganun nakikita, hindi siya ganun ka-visible, pero I suppose para siyang silent killer for all of us and for our communities. Tapos dun sa question, sa number 2 question, hinihikayat ko yung communities ng mental health advocates and experts. Tingin ko malaki yung maitutulong nyo when it comes to adding your voice regarding the issue on the climate crisis. Pwede din kayong maging involved sa mga policy makers natin, saka sa decision makers. Pwede tayong gumawa ng petitions regarding sa mga tingin niyo mga programa at polisiya na nakakapagbigay ng proteksyon talaga sa ating kalikasan at natutugunan ang mga pangangailangan ng mga komunidad na magkaroon ng maayos na makakalikasan na kapaligiran. Kanina may nakikita ako na doon sa chat na yes to more public eco-friendly and green spaces. May ganong chat. Ako I would support that. Yes to that. Need natin yan kasi we need spaces to connect with other people, diba, sa communities natin. So if we are able to really engage our local leaders to the kind of community and the kind of programs that we want, so maganda yon rather than madalas highways na lang and expressways and mega dams yung nabibuild. Yan nga. So kasi nga yung overall health natin and well-being is connected, independent doon sa healthy climate and environment. So we really need to participate and get involved. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you so much, Ms. Heidi. That means so much, all of the responses from all of you. And truly today's topic is actually extremely relevant. And you were just speaking earlier, once again, of course, of how air pollution is something that's even a unifying issue across the world. Imagine that actual science-based fact that 99% of us are breathing polluted air. And of course, millions are dying prematurely each year just from air pollution in itself. And this goes back once again to policies, but of course from governments to businesses, and of course all of us taking collective action and reminding everyone that aside from the decisions we make each day, from the products that we buy, but the policies we support, who we vote for really makes a big difference on how things can move forward. And of course, the right to a healthy environment is something that is provided to every single human being on this planet. And of course, when we speak of that, that means everything that happens once again to the planet affects us all. So what was also said earlier about how the mental health community can fully support climate action in an urgent and crucial way is really something that is significant. Once again, also for the Philippines itself, the Philippines was actually noted on making a huge significant change when it came to mental health support after Typhoon Haiyan. And that was recognized. Now, how we may be talking about mental health in a spectrum that we do today, but looking at how it really affects communities that are faced with disasters throughout the year nonstop. We have another question. for all of the speakers to be able to respond to. You may all give your opinion on this as well, how in your respective professions, so as in environment champions, reformers of nature, clinicians, educators, mental health professionals, how are you personally currently acting to respond to help prevent or adapt for environmental ecological emergencies among your service recipients? How have you seen this change, most especially in the recent years?
Oh, okay. So I think I can start. Oh, okay. So in my experience and in my practice, no, and in a field of psychology, there is a lot of research and active organizations that provides different mental health supports or psychological first aid supports to those individuals who are being affected by extreme weather changes, no, especially from nearby provinces or for those communities that are affected by these weather changes. But aside from that, it's also a growing body of research in our field on how we can address those experiences or mental health problems that may be experienced by people prior to the occurrence of these extreme weather changes. So one of the concepts that were introduced from our discussions is the environmental anxiety or the eco-anxiety, which is somehow young in the field of psychology. Although there are already researchers or specialists in environmental psychology, no, it's still, I think, in an infancy stage as compared to the other areas of psychology. No, and it focuses on how we can help people who are already at risk of experiencing those consequences brought to us by the extreme weather changes. So by giving them help or offering them help, they would also be informed about the things that they can do in order to help the environment recover and prevent themselves from being affected by these extreme weather conditions. Yeah. So that's limited, not to the available body of research that I have read and studied. I'm not sure. I think Sir Ron can also add to that, since he is one of the people that I consider to be my mentor in the practice of psychology. Although we don't have direct mentorship sessions, but I've always attended, his training sessions in the field of psychology.
Wow, thank you for that, Mr. Lordy. And with that, Dr. Ron, anything to add po?
I'm very honored, Lordy. Sir Lordy, thank you so much for that. I hope to meet you in person one of these days. But to add to that, as a psychologist, as much as possible, I try to integrate nature or environment in my practice. So I usually handle kids, and youth. So I teach them how to heal through nature, to be responsible. Like for example, usually kasi our relationship with nature is one way, di ba? We take good pictures of nature for our Instagram, parang ganun. It's always one way. We always get something from nature. Like we put a plant in our office to beautify our place or to distress, no? But we don't do research on how to take care of them. Ano yung basic need ng plant na yun, no? So after 2 weeks, patay na. No, parang as simple as that, no? If you take something from nature, you give something back. No, make sure that you take care of them. You buy a pet, you don't even know the basic needs of the pet. No? So you do research also, as basic as that. As a faculty, as a teacher, I try to be involved in researches in environmental psych, as Sir Lloyd said a while ago, no, medyo young pa relative to other fields. But I try to, as much as I can, to be involved in those kinds of projects. As a parent naman, I try my best to really inculcate to my child the importance of loving nature, to giving back. O yun nga yung gusto ko talagang i-promote na yung pakikipagkapwa kalikasan. So that she'll grow up being a responsible person so that she will do the same to the next generation. So I think that's my side. So thank you.
Maraming salamat, Doc Ron. And Miss Heidi, anything to add din po to the perspectives, of course, Mr. Lordy and Doc Ron?
Gusto ko yung ginawa ni Doc Ron na different, multifaceted yung response niya. Siguro I'll start with how our organization is responding. Yung responding to the need. For us kasi, since 2015 pa, we submitted a petition, an inquiry sa Commission on Human Rights, requesting an investigation of the responsibility of the carbon majors for human rights violations or threats of violations resulting from the impacts of climate change. So, ongoing yung inquiry na ito, ongoing yung investigation na ito. Kasama din sa hearings at investigations, yung mga witnesses mula sa iba't ibang Filipino communities, mula sa grassroots and indigenous communities na naapektuhan ng pabago-bagong klima. And tingin ko malaking bagay na kasama sila sa proseso na ito. At may platform din sila para marinig yung boses nila. At para ma-express din nila kung paano sila naapektuhan. And maisama doon sa inquiry saka sa investigation. So malaking bagay yan sa mga communities. And for us, isa din ito na paraan para matulungan natin yung Filipino community mula sa mga pinsala na nadulot ng climate crisis. So that's for the organization. Ako siguro, the other one as an individual, agree ako doon, like na-validate actually ni Sir Lordy tsaka ni Sir Ron yung like how I do on my free time. Na I really try to spend some time in nature. Hate pala, no? Totoo pala yung may psychological pala yun. Facts na ba yan? Na the environment, nature really heals. So I make time to do that. And as a parent, part of what we inculcate with our daughters is they need to get involved then. And so they also need to use their voices with, kasi yung 14-year-old ko ngayon really experienced climate anxiety. So parang kailangan ko din siyang i-balance na me being an activist and going being strong about my points and all that. Kailangan ko din siyang i-balance as a parent na it's okay, everything will be okay, yung parang ganun. So balancing it as a parent and telling her to use her voice also and participate, this is important aspect of being part of the community.
Thank you so much. It's really so wonderful to hear from each of you, Mr. Lordy, Doc Ron, Ms. Heidi, and not just, of course, on technical aspects, but also really sharing how your personal lives are impacted and how everything you are really doing is not just for the future of the generation out there, the future of today, but your own families and your own children. Before we move forward to the next question, I just want to share a couple of comments in the chat box. So sabi ni Nikki O'Bannon, I believe there is a need to ensure accessibility of mental health professionals catering to vulnerable communities, especially to members of indigenous communities. And yes, of course, yes to that. And from Cherry Kisses Espera, sabi niya, hi po, I just want to thank all the speakers, the host, and the association po, PMHA. The topic is very relevant, not just to society, but also to me. At sana masarap po ang ulam niyong lahat. Shout out po sa KLD Kolehiyo ng Lungsod ng Dasmariñas students. Thank you for joining us. And of course, moving forward to another question that we still have some time for this discussion. Kaya kung may mga tanong po kayo sa mga nanonood ngayon, those that are joining us live, please do key them in the comment section of Facebook or here in the chat box on Zoom so that we can direct them to our speakers. Up next po, another question. Now, what do you think could help sustain current efforts and initiatives in the promotion of mental health and, of course, the prevention of problems in mental health during environmental and ecological emergencies, or of course, what we call climate change or the inevitable climate events that the Philippines is especially facing today? Feeling ko may pattern na po tayo kung sino yung order ng mga sasagot. May I call na? Pero naiya naman po ako. Mr. Lordy, would you like to begin?
Okay. Sige po. Thank you po, Mrs. Well, I think the continuous presence of organizations such as the PMHA and other organizations who could actually cater this kind of webinars so that we could educate, inform more people about the environmental changes, its effects on mental health, and what we can do to address those problems that they may experience could really help. No, because as we inform the younger generation about the presence of these concerns, we are already initiating the transition, no? Or the what would be the best term for that? Parang the spread, no, of the knowledge that they should have, so they could also do their own way or contribute in their own little way, informing other people who are not yet reached by this kind of program. So parang paying it forward, I'm not sure if that's the right concept in that, wherein we'll be informing maybe over 400 people right now, but after they've attended this kind of webinars, they can inform their local government units, they can inform their own offices that there's really a need to discuss or have a conversation about these things. And we started for over 400 people, then hopefully over the upcoming months or weeks, they can initiate programs like this so we can inform more. And I hope that's where we can start continuing this kind of initiatives or programs to inform more people.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lordy. That really truly is so meaningful and a huge aspect of how change is actually made. And even today, the fact that if any of you have shared this live stream online, you don't know who you're reaching, who you're helping, and that actually cascades, and there's a ripple effect towards everything that we do, and you yourself become that light in someone's life. Dr. Ron, would you like to follow up?
I guess I'm next. Sige. So, a while ago, I asked what you associate with youth. Then Michelle and Miss Grisel and Aline, they associate youth with future. So I think to sustain this effort, we should rely on the youth. We rely on their passion, their commitment, their zeal. Okay? That's why we promote the positive youth development movement. We rely on them. And second, there should be a systemic solution. It's not just the responsibility of the government, the family, the schools. It should be a systemic solution. Everyone should cooperate. We invite everyone to be an advocate. So para tuloy-tuloy itong efforts na ito. We cannot rely in just one institution or group of people. So yan, thank you.
Thank you. And of course, Ms. Heidi, if you want to add anything to that as well. But of course, Dr. Ron, systemic change, totoo po. No matter what we do, true change cannot happen without systemic change. It will not be sustainable. It will not last, and it cannot be strengthened and carried forward without systemic change. Ms. Heidi?
Thank you, Tony. Naalala ko a few years back nung nag-Yolanda. Parang merong panawagan that time for yung psych debriefers, parang gano'n. Tapos nung moment kasi na yun, yung mga ibang friends for that time, they wanted to help but didn't know how. Hindi naman sila psych experts. Tingin ko malaki nito sa context ng climate crisis. Malaki talaga yung yung tulong na bibigay ng mga mental health advocates, your community. Survivors. Yung nga kanina, di ba, sa video, hindi pa nga tapos, hindi pa nga namin napaprocess, meron na naman. Yung parang ganun. So malaking tulong if we have access to that. Tapos syempre if the community is able to provide care for the carers then like kunyari yung mga disaster risk responders natin, yung ibang mga NGOs that do not have access to mga processings like this, pwede ding like cloning and multiplying yung expertise so that when some another thing, hopefully wala, another thing happens and kailangan natin ng massive na safety briefing again, there would be more people who can hold the line and hold the hand of the survivors. So malaking tulong din yan. Tsaka paulit-ulit ko talaga sinasabi, powerful for the community, for the mental health advocates community to really join yung call for climate justice. Kasi mga climate advocates na nakikita and even outside sa ibang tao din na hindi lang iilan yung may pakialam tungkol sa climate crisis, but it's really an issue na we are all connected, diba? It's really an issue that everyone is affected, is impacted, and malaking bagay na malawak at iba't ibang community yung kasama sa panawagan na ito. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you, Miss Heidi. And of course, thank you also for mentioning how to care for the people that care for us, from the ones that are on the ground, giving support, counseling, supporting, to even our experts that are with us today. Everyone also needs to have that same concern, that same care, and that same support. We have some questions also, of course, from our participants today. So I'd like to share them with you. First one is actually from DOH-CHG Cordillera, from Orly Primo. Ang tanong po niya para sa ating participants is, hi, good afternoon. Are there studies conducted in the Philippines presenting the prevalence of climate anxiety? Now, if there are, in the Philippines, what specific groups in the Philippines experience this on an elevated level? And this is directed to any one of our speakers for today.
Go ahead, Sir Lordy.
Okay, I think there are ongoing research, no, because for example, in our university, there are research students who are starting to be aware about the effect of mental health, the effect of climate change in mental health. But so far, I'm not sure, but there's no published research yet, I think. No, but I think those researchers are on their way, no, to be conducted, or if it's on their way to be published. So it could also be peer reviewed by other experts in psychology and in climate change. No, so sorry, but I didn't came across a specific paper that was published in a peer-reviewed publishing website or organization that collected data from the Filipino setting. No, so most of the research that we've encountered so far are literature coming from other countries. No, and again, this is a very young field in psychology. So I hope if we have students here in the field in psychology who are still trying to think about their topic, then maybe this would be a good sign for them not to start writing a proposal for writing a topic about climate change and mental health. I think Sir Ron can also add to that.
It's quite challenging to do a study on prevalence or yung number of incidents of eco-anxiety since it's not yet that established. No? It's not even, again, included in DSM. So it will be hard to do a study of prevalence. So I think the first step is really to conceptualize, define, know the symptoms of what eco-anxiety is, or environmental anxiety is, or climate anxiety. Yun nga, ang dami pang tawag, no? So I think that's the first step. And I think this is a call for researchers to do a study on eco-anxiety. And remember, it can be different also across cultures. No? Different yung climate change sa iba-ibang parts ng world. So dapat meron din tayong local study about it, no, before we can know about the incidence or prevalence of eco-anxiety. So, yun, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lordy and Doc Ron. And of course, this really shows us that, everything that could be lacking or every problem is definitely always an opportunity to be the change. And once again, as mentioned, for those of you that are exploring certain careers, certain pathways forward, the questions that you're asking today are actually vital solutions that are needed. So we really truly hope that some of you out there, a lot of you will be inspired from today's conversation, and of course to choose your path based on what you're learning today. We have another question from online as well. And the question is Filipino climate change activism somehow linked or correlated to other forms of activism like political activism? And I feel like for this question, it might be appropriate to direct this to Miss Heidi, who actually I feel is involved with the correlation between these two topics as well. And we also invite Mr. Lordy and Dr. Ron in case they would also like to give their opinion on that.
Sorry, Tony. Yung isang comparison, ay, hindi ko na-catch.
If climate change activism can somehow be correlated to other forms of activism in the Philippines, like political activism itself.
Dito kasi sa atin, when we say activist ka, somehow, no, culturally, it gives a negative connotation. Parang when you say activist ako ng ganito, it has, na allergic yung mga parents natin and lola for that. But yung root word ng activism is you act. Diba? You act on something. You take action on something na tingin mo may mali, na gusto mong ibahin, gusto mong gawan ng solusyon, parang ganun. And madami sa atin na youth ngayon who are joining in the climate strikes and Fridays for Future, nakikita din nila kasi nga sobrang lawak ng issue ng climate crisis. Sobrang lawak ng kung sino yung na-affectedness nito sa iba't ibang issue at iba't ibang pagkilos din dito sa atin sa Pilipinas. So for example, meron tayong mga kapartners na katrabaho na they also call for climate justice, but at the same time meron din galing sila sa mga marginalized communities na displaced prior pa na mas naging frequent yung nasisira yung environment because of deforestation, logging, yung mga ganon. So they've already been displaced. And now we're calling for climate justice, and at the same time they're also calling for justice dun sa environmental justice dun sa pagkasira ng mga habitat nila, ng environment nila, connected siya. Kasi talaga, agad-agad, at sobrang nalulugmok dahil sa impacts ng climate crisis, immediately nakakaramdam nun yung mga marginalized communities. And kung ano man yung nilalaban nila sa ibang issue, at some point, it will intersect to the issue of climate crisis din. Kasi nga, issue din siya ng justice. Hopefully, nasagot ko yung tanong.
Yes, most definitely, Miss Heidi. Thank you so much. And I actually want to go directly into this next question from Zoom. We're almost out of time for our panel discussion and, of course, for our open forum. But this one is from Casto Ignacio, and this is directed to any of our resource panelists today as well. So as the family is the smallest social unit, parental guidance and influence should be a great source to guide and influence family members towards environmental care, concern, and values. The question is also, are there already available programs that target parents in influencing their children while they are still young. And this goes out to any one of our guest speakers today. And once again, thank you to Casto Ignacio from Zoom for sending in this question.
Sige, I'll try to.
Thanks, Doc Ron.
Sir Lordy, ako na una, okay lang. First of all, Sir Casto, I would like to meet you. I encounter your name in many PAP events, no, but I don't have the honor of meeting you pa, no, pa. So hopefully in the future I'll meet you. I haven't encountered any program yet, but it would be a nice initiative to start, no? So calling groups there, sana kung may mga PAP members dyan, maybe there are members here of the environmental SIG. That would be a nice initiative, no? A program for parents on how to educate or inculcate or just foster love of nature among their children. It will go a long way if we do that. So, but ngayon wala pa po talaga akong parang nakitang program specific to that, but it's a nice initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc Ron. And I think in a way, I guess that love itself from parents, pag meron naman natututunan, pag merong bagong napipick up na knowledge or anything, opportunities to always share this and cascade this to the youth, it's always there. And even today, the sharings of today are very, very valuable. So for any parents that are out there, napakalaking bagay. I guess, hindi po ako parent, but of course, empowering yourself as a parent automatically already creates that link towards bringing it to the children, to the youth, and vice versa. I can't help but bring forward what we've also seen in communities, how children can inspire their parents, the family, their ates, kuyas, so much. Because when it comes to children, it's like black and white, right and wrong. And it's very hard to make that compromise in between. So para silang nagiging magandang reality check and values check din. And so empowering them truly is empowering for the future. We have time for possibly one more question from our online participants. I apologize, wala pong pangalan ng tanong na to, but the question is, as you have discussed, human mental health can be affected by environmental exposures like green space, noise, air pollution, weather, domestic home conditions in unfavorable ways. And from some of the strategies and methods we discussed on how to help secure good mental health amidst the said environmental hazards, which of these methods or strategies would you consider as the most useful and readily applicable, especially in a tropical and developing country like the Philippines? And for any one of the speakers, po ito.
Okay, I'll try to take a stab. Niisip ko ang Pilipinas kasi archipelagic country. So anywhere may may tubig. No, may madami tayong ilog, madami tayong karagatan. And accessible siya. And I think siguro yung mention nga kanina, I think it was Sir Lordy who mentioned vitamin C, the healing power of the ocean. I think it's important for us to also look at paano ba natin magamit yung yamang tubig natin na we are able to protect it, di ba? Kasi it gives us life every day, di ba? Hindi tayo mabubuhay kung walang tubig. So how do we use this natural resource and how do we protect it? Kasi it provides healing for us and provides us energy. Ayan siguro, part of it is us one enjoying it and loving it, diba? Kasi it's very accessible to us, and when we love something, we have this strong urge to actually protect it. So doon nanggagaling yung natin, diba? Yung urge natin, kailangan natin protectionan siya. So I guess that's one thing, no, na one concrete thing that we can do kasi very accessible sa atin ang katubigan. Over.
Thank you, Miss Heidi. Mr. Lordy?
Okay, so I think I just have to go back to an important statement no, that I also discussed when I talked about the things that we could actually do. It's actually hard to pinpoint a specific step that everyone could always try and consider it as the most effective one because again, in protecting our mental health, there's no one size that could fit all. No, it's always personalized. It's always devised in a way that would fit a person's preference. So it's actually hard to say something that everyone should do, no, and tell them that okay, pag tinanay mo to, for sure protected ka. It's actually hard, no, to discuss it, especially if we're dealing with varied group of individuals, no. So siguro it's all about trying to engage on those potential things that could help us and if possible guided by a professional, no, and decide whether which of these things would be the best for us. And again, if it will be difficult for us to identify these things on our own, I hope we could always consider seeking professional help as an option so we can ask someone not to guide us towards personalizing these things to protect our mental health. Ayun po.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Lordy. Doc Ron?
Okay, I echo Sir Lordy, no one size fits all. Kanya-kanyang trip yan. No, you have a lot of things to consider. Well, if you can afford to go to the beach every week, why not? No, but syempre not all of us can afford that. So, pwedeng sa bahay lang. Every morning, just face the sun and namnamin mo lang yung hangin na as simple as those are very helpful. Ito yung small practices but frequent practices can actually help. No? So, hindi kailangan gumastos sa malaki. Maraming considerations and allergies. No? Gusto mong mag-outdoor pero ang dami mong allergies sa pollen, may phobia ka sa gagamba. No? There are a lot of considerations but siguro kung maraming different types o maraming pwedeng strategies, siguro ang pinaka-best is to find what is best for you. At imposibleng hindi ka makahanap sa dami ng pwedeng possibilities, sa dami ng nature elements, makakahanap ka. Siguro yun yung pinaka-best, no? Hanapin mo yung best for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc Ron, Mr. Lordy, and Miss Heidi. And yes, that's true. Honestly, I mean, hindi po ako expert, pero #relate na naman po ako sa lahat ng sinasabi ninyo. And everyone's healing journey is personal to them. The timeline, the ways, the methods, and how it actually is for each of us. As I mentioned, even for me, it's a journey that I continue to move forward and I continue to manage and really make my best effort in every single day. And more, once again, looking at the progress of it. And also looking at, of course, yung sinabi ni Doc Ron din na magkakaiba tayo. Meron siyang mas mahilig sa forest, meron ding sa ocean. So kanya-kanya din talaga ng mga healing patterns and healing preferences, but none of them would ever be really considered to be wrong, especially if they're recommended by experts. And it's so important to be able to follow your heart and to follow what works for you as well. And before we move forward, we actually have one last question bago natin i-close ang ating open forum to each of our guest speakers. It's actually not a question, but more of we'd like to request each of you to give us a short but sweet, kahit 1 to 2 minute, last few words and reminders that you would like to leave with our guests and participants today. We can begin with Ms. Heidi, Dr. Ron, and Mr. Lordy. Unless you want to follow the pattern that we've had since Karina, we can also begin with Mr. Lordy as well. Please go ahead, Mr. Lordy.
Okay. Sige po, ako na po ulit ang una. Well, this is a line no, that I've also encountered in one of the seminars I've attended no, way before I started practicing psychology. And it's really related to our environment because it talks about how we contribute. So I hope everyone could take note of it, that in this spaceship we call Earth, no one is a passenger, but we are all members of the crew who should take care of it. No, that no one are expected to enjoy the leisure of living in this spaceship, but every one of us, regardless of your status, position, hierarchy, you're still a member of the crew, and you have your own way on how you could take care of this spaceship. I guess I can end my part with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lordy. We are all stewards of the earth. Thank you so much. Dr. Ron.
Sige, last messages. I want to thank PMHA, for inviting us. Thank you for our fellow panel members. I also learned a lot from you, from our audience. Ma'am Tony, thank you for an excellent hosting. Yan lang, siguro last word would be pakikipagkapwa kalikasan. No? We give and take. It should not be one way. No? Hindi pwedeng tayo lang nakikinabang. No? So dapat we also take care of our environment. Thank you.
Maraming salamat po, Dr. Ron. And of course, Miss Heidi.
Yung kapwa. Ako, siguro, final message. Personally, tingin ko innate sa ating mga Pilipino na magtulungan. Tapos, para kasi nasa kultura na natin. So, if we feel the urge to help, push, go, act on this desire to help, and tumulong na naaayon sa ating personal na kakayahan. And while at it, also, always remember to rest, recharge, and then find joy in simple things wherever you can. Kasi itong tatlong to, I think, for me personally, these are all very important elements na we need to have as we shape the kind of future that we want. Over, Tony.
Thank you, Miss Heidi. And actually, truly, from me personally, wala po akong final message, pero gusto ko lang din po magpasalamat sa inyo pong tatlo. Of course, to Mr. Lordy, Dr. Ron, Miss Heidi, thank you for all that you do. I want to let you know that this has been an incredible and meaningful experience for me to learn directly from you, to hear from you. And I really look forward to all the amazing things that you continue to do moving forward. Maraming salamat for your time today and for sharing not just your knowledge, but for sharing your hearts with all of us. And of course, to show our appreciation to our dear guest speakers, and of course, to present them with their certificates of appreciation, we would like to call on Ms. Llewellyn Isa B. de la Cruz, Program Manager of PMHA's Education, Advocacy, and Research Department, to present the citation and awarding of our amazing speakers.
Sorry, I had a technical problem. Sorry. But let me just read the citation. But before I do so, I just would like to really personally thank the speakers. You've been very great, and my heart is very happy listening to all of you and listening to all of you tackle this topic. So let me just read. The Philippine Mental Health Association Incorporated would like to award this certificate of appreciation to Ms. Heidi Illenberger, to Dr. Ron Resurrection, and to Mr. Lordy Angelo Santos for sharing their invaluable time and knowledge as their source speakers on the topics that you have all discussed this afternoon during this National Mental Health Week 2022 webinar for the general public with the theme Thriving in Well-Being, Ensuring a Healthy Environment for Positive Mental Health, given this 13th day of October 2022, signed by our dear National Executive Director, Dr. Carolina Uno Raico. Thank you very much to the three of you. We're very happy to really listen to you this afternoon.
Maraming salamat po, Ms. Llewellyn Isa de la Cruz. And of course, Ms. Isa, thank you so much. And of course, to Ms. Heidi, Dr. Ron, and Mr. Lordy, we would like to request for you to stay on the screen really quickly for a quick photo op to remember this meaningful day. And we would like to call on Miss Marielle to help facilitate this photo op.
Alright, good afternoon po. Tingin lang po kayo sa inyong mga cameras. And 1, 2, 3, smile. One more time po. Wacky naman po. Ayan, 1, 2, 3, smile. Alright, thank you. Back to you, Miss Antoinette.
Thank you very much. Maraming salamat. And of course, to further improve PMHA's programs, please do help us by answering the evaluation form. May nagtanong niyan kanina kung meron daw bang evaluation. Yes, meron po. At you'll be able to see the link in the chat box and of course also on your screen through the QR code flashed right now. And of course, we will give you a few minutes to answer this program evaluation right now on the spot while we are here live. And while you guys are actually answering that evaluation, I'm so grateful to PMHA for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about what we do at Cora. And I'm actually going to be presenting my screen if that's possible. I'm not quite sure if that's all right. But just to share also, Cora started as a volunteer group and everything really began through the power of volunteers, family, friends that came together to make a change somehow in any way, to be a part of the solution. Sabi nga ni Ms. Heidi kanina, to act together. And as a nonprofit, we've engaged over 25,000 volunteers. And of course, as founder, I'm grateful to be able to work not just with the United Nations Environment Program, but with organizations across the Philippines, across the region, to help bring important issues to the forefront. And of course, to take action on the ground with communities. The numbers you see on the screen are just some of the impacts we've been able to make. But more than anything, none of this would be possible without people that care, without volunteers, and without those that dedicate their lives for a better world. So when we talk about people and the planet, it's really about looking at how one affects the other. Everything that we discussed today. And Cora is actually named after my mom because, as I mentioned earlier, I do also have a mental health journey that I wish I could have shared with all of you since before pa talaga. And honestly, this is something that maybe in another session in the future we can discuss. But katulad ng sabi ko kanina, yung friends, family, and faith, totoo po yun. It's actually even a part of what I discussed because losing my mom had ended up with my journey through mental health, through depression, through anxiety. And this is actually over a decade ng mga pinagdadaanan ko din. And the one thing that truly brought me to the light was once again friends, family, and faith. And sounds easier said than done, quite a journey, but it brought us to where we are today. And before I move on really quickly, I just want to share that one thing that I was really surprised to find out about on this journey was as we set out to make a difference, we wanted to make a change, to volunteer, to be there to help others. Na-shock po ako, natutunan ko po sa isang ganitong klase ding webinar, sa isang empowering event like this, that volunteering is actually healing. Na as we search and yearn to help others, to do for people on the planet, to help the environment, to do things that can help heal our world, we do not realize that we are actually healing ourselves. So in the process of healing each other, healing the people that we love, and of course, being there for those that need us the most, we actually continue that cycle of love and light, bringing it all the way back to each other. And so Cora in itself, the nonprofit work, what we are doing today has been a key aspect and a huge aspect of my personal healing as well. And I hope that it can be for many of you out there as well. So maraming salamat po muli. And of course, before we end today's events, we have one other special intermission number prepared for all of you. Now from PMHA's Clinical and Intervention Services Department, the mental health consumers, with the assistance of the staff, occupational therapists, teachers, and interns, prepared a heartwarming and inspiring performance for us today. You will also have a glimpse of their current face-to-face transition. Now, I'm sure we are all yearning for as well. Together, friends, let us all give a virtual round of applause to the Intervention Services Adult Mental Health Consumers.
One, 4, 3.
There are ways to get there. Happy National
Mental
Health Week. Make a better place. Heal the world. Make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me.
If you want to know why, there's a love it cannot. Love is strong, it only cares of joyful giving.
In this place we cannot feel your dread. We stop existing and start living.
Lord, existing stars, then it is always love. Make a better world for you and for me.
The entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me. And the dream we were conceiving with you, joyful face, and the world we want to live in, shining in the place. Then why do we keep standing up? Start crucified soul, to explain to see this world is heavenly. We got
Magandang araw po. Magandang araw sa inyo. Sana meron tayong respeto sa mga kapwa nating tao. Huwag tayong maghusga sa tao na hindi natin kilala. Tulungan natin ang mga may disabilities para hindi sila mahirapan. Happy National Mental Health Week sa inyo.
to make a better place. Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and the entire human race. There are people dying. If you care enough for the living, to make a better place for you and for me. Oh, there are people dying. If you care enough for the living, so make a better place for you and for me. You and for me. You and for me. You and for me. You and you for what we live in. Save it for our children. You for what we live in. Save it for our children. You for what we live in. Save it for our children.
Wow, maraming salamat po muli. Indeed, a very, very heartwarming performance production put together. Maraming salamat po muli from the PMHA's Intervention Services Adult Mental Health Consumers for that wonderful, meaningful production and song number that we put together for our participants today. And of course, we thank everyone that joined us, that is a part of the mission every single day, in everything that you do, when you are there to listen, when you are there for someone, you are already spreading love and light and being a part of how we can make a change for a better future. And of course, to formally wrap up our event and share words of thanks and appreciation to all of us, staff in charge of the National Mental Health Week 2022 and program coordinator of PMHA's Education, Advocacy, and Research Department. Please welcome Ms. Ayana Ley Apelo for her closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Miss Antoinette. And of course, good afternoon, everyone. Nako, no, coming from a very heartwarming number tayo. Actually, I've seen that video, I've heard that music a few times already, pero nakakaantig pa din ng puso. And I see na nakikita ko sa screens ngayon na napakadami din naiyak. So, pare-parehas lang po tayo. And we're so glad that you were able to see and hear from our dearest mental health consumers. Alright, so gusto ko lang po sabihin na nako, gumanda-ganda na no, sa wakas ang hapon natin dahil nagliwanag na talaga. I'm not sure where the others are at, but here in Quezon City, sobrang lumakas po yung ulan kanina nung nagsisimula pa lamang tayo. Pero ngayon, naisip ko na lang, parang talagang palang nagparamdam, no, ang environment sa atin. Hi daw, sabi ni Mother Nature, nakikinig din daw siya. Kaya maraming salamat at you guys remain hanging on and also connected. So we're so grateful for that. And like what Miss Antoinette said early on, indeed, we even reached the maximum number of participants here on Zoom. And we're so glad to have participative viewers also on Facebook. So hello, hope you are still all hanging on and having a fruitful time with us as well. And let me just say it's already Thursday and it's actually PMHA's last webinar for the National Mental Health Week. What a week it has been, and imagine we have done so much in the past few days. And as we close to end this week, actually we are doing it full of enlightened minds and hearts. And speaking of this, this topic is actually very close to my heart. I am also a dear advocate of both for the environment and for mental health. And truly, my colleagues, my friends, and family can definitely attest to this. And it's such an honor for us to conduct this because having to tackle both topics at once, you know, in one day, one afternoon, and one event even, diba, is such an amazing experience. And I've heard early on also that we are indeed coming together to reclaim the rights of the people. And you are part of that. So it may be true that climate anxiety is also increasing. But nonetheless, I'm grateful that more and more people are aware, more and more are involved. Yun naman ang pinakakailangan natin. I've heard so much of that from our great speakers. And I also heard something in the lines of locally we may be acting, but globally we realize that there's so much more to be done. And that's true. You know, ideally we do aim for a sustainable planet, and though that might be close to impossible, there's no harm in trying. And in fact, actually, awareness is always key. And today, you guys, nako, 500 and more, plus strong, being here is a step closer to greater impact, external and internal as well. Diba, minsan nakikita natin sa ibang tao, sa paligid natin, pero minsan sa atin din mismo nakikita natin iyon. At sa totoo lang, sa atin naman talaga, diba, sa atin talaga dapat nagsisimula. Simple things, lessen your carbon footprint, do research. I've heard that a lot of times early on, also be authentic, but also be realistic and start today, but be consistent. So that's very important. And again, give importance to your family, your friends, workmates, faith, and health. I think that really concludes our topic for today. And I know it won't be easy. It really won't, and especially not anytime soon. But together, we do have a fighting chance. And I see it more and more every day. I hope for you guys as well, you know. And actually, before I end, I would also like to share a few announcements that I'm pretty sure will be relevant to you guys also. like what I've been saying, we also need to take care of our own mental health and our kalusugan ng isip. Yan ang tawag namin. At actually, ilan sa mga PMHA chapters po namin ay may libreng serbisyo para sa inyong mga kalusugan ng isip, lalo na sa mga nakakaranas ng karahasan at pang-aabuso. Meron po tayong libreng serbisyo nga po para sa inyo. At doon po sa mga nais makipag-usap, sa mga mental health professionals namin, maaari kayong mag-chat gamit ang inyong Facebook Messenger sa amin PMHA chapters. Meron po kami sa Davao, sa Bohol, at sa Palawan. At makikita nyo rin po ang mga links na ito sa ating chat box. Lagi lang po nating tandaan na may mga taong handang tumulong sa atin. Kami po, nandito po kami para sa inyo. 72 years to be exact actually. And of course, last but not the least, Thursday pa lang ngayon. So Friday, meron pa po kaming activity. So in addition to the wonderful events that you are seeing on screen of our PMHA chapters, we would also like to invite all our members, all our volunteers to our hangout session tomorrow. We are actually on our second year already from 2:30 to 4 p.m. This will be via Zoom only kasi nga po exclusive siya. But if you're not yet a member, I hope you would be interested to still become a member because these membership fees also help sustain the mental health services of our indigent service users. So our mental health consumers, some but not all, were actually seen in the video early on. Ayan. So pag gusto nyo silang tulungan, magpa-member na po kayo. And also the implementation of the program and services of PMHA. And again, we are accepting applications year-long naman po. Wala po kaming deadline. So you'll also be seeing the link in the chat box. Thank you so much. And of course, just to end this, I would just like to thank again the whole team who helped us make this amazing event possible. Ayan, the whole PMHA team. Shout out din sa IAA and research team na nag-head nitong project na ito specifically. And to my co-staff in charge of the National Mental Health Weakness, Rachel, saludo sa'yo. We are together in this. Congratulations to all of us. And syempre sa ating guest host na Miss Antoinette and fellow advocate. Alam mo yan, I've been telling you this even from the previous days also. I'm so happy to be with you in this project. I also learned so much from you, not just from our speakers. So that's so humbling feeling for me. And again, our extraordinary speakers, Ms. Heidi Docron, actually one of my best grad school professors. Ayan, yun ko lang ata sinabi. Hindi ko pa nasabi sa team. Thank you so much. And Sir Lordy, thank you. It's not just your words that kept us inspired, but also your own initiatives and support. Kumbaga, the four of you actually, you guys walk the talk and we appreciate that. Thank you so much for being generous with your inputs. Truly, you make us feel that, we are all hardworking in this and we are all a mentally healthy team as well. So together, the whole PMHA community is behind you. So to everyone else, simple lang, open your eyes, diba? Truly experience the wonders of the world, but never forget to take care of it as well. I think it's an understatement to say that by now, it's interconnected. Prioritizing both mental health and environmental health are necessary steps to holistic health. And together, there's so much more to discover. So again, our hearts are full. Paulit-ulit namin itong sinabi. I think Ma'am Isa also said this earlier. Non-stop gratitude to you and the whole PMHA won't stop as well. So again, for 72 years na. And you guys here on Zoom, hopefully we all won't stop. So we have already started and there's no going back. Happy National Mental Health Week, everybody. Thank you so much. And back to you, Miss Antoinette.
Wow, what a way to close this amazing webinar, this incredible week. And of course, thank you so much, Miss Ayana, for bringing everything together with your incredible team. And of course, our event may have come to an end, but our advocacies and journey as environmental and mental health advocates continues. Remember, what happens to the planet affects people, and whatever happens to people or whatever people do also affects the planet. So it really truly is intertwined. We are grateful to all of our participants that joined us live. Thank you very much. And to those that are watching this and sharing this wonderful event, and of course the events all week long with people that may need to hear these meaningful messages the most. This has been Antoinette Toss, and I wish you all a wonderful and peaceful National Mental Health Week. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And of course, thank you very much to the Philippine Mental Health Association.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. That actually officially ends our live stream on Facebook, but we are still here with you all on Zoom. So to our Zoom participants, we have an extra quick ending treat, which is we would like to ask everyone to once again turn on their cameras for one last photo together. Of course, to keep in our hearts and in our memories this meaningful session and this meaningful week. Smile, everyone.
All right, we have 8 slides po, so please bear with us. So,
thank you, Miss
pakita niyo
Mariel.
po ang inyong pinaka-bright na ngiti. Ayan, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, slide number 2, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, next slide po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Habol pa po sa mga hindi pa nakakapag-turn on ng kanilang cameras. Ayan, again, 1, 2, 3, smile. Ayan, we're on to the 5th panel po. Alright. Last 2 panels. Okay. Alright. And then we're on to the last panel. Smile. Alright, thank you po. Back to you, Miss Antoinette.
Maraming salamat, Miss Mariel, and once again to everyone. Truly a meaningful week that I'm grateful I was able to spend with all of you. What a gift to be able to be here together. And of course, I hope that you keep this incredibly meaningful week, these urgent messages in your hearts always. It can never be easy, you know, we all have challenges. Ako man mismo, every day, marami din ako pinagdadaanan. Pero, grabe, as long as we do this together, we remember that we are not alone. We have each other. We can always get through anything. Sending you love, light, peace, and blessings to each and every one of you. Happy National Mental Health Week.
Recording stopped.